Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Joey from The Social Shepherd. You've probably seen me before. If you haven't seen me before, I am the paid media director here. I'm joined by Jack today, who's one of the co-owners of the company. And we are here to talk to you about Facebook ads today.
Yeah, I think I was looking back in how much we've spent over the last 180 days, as well as sort of like historically over since the start of the agency. And you can put this on the screen, but we spent $7.2 million.
It's a lot of bloody money.
In the last 180 days, and in the region of probably about $20 million since the start of the agency as well. And I think from that, we've obviously got a lot of experiences, a lot of things that we can share from spending that volume of money. I think at the moment we're probably spending, realistically like $1.5 million a month, I guess, is a sort of run rate, and that's only increasing with more and more clients. So I think there's some hopefully good nuggets we can share of all of our experience on the Facebook ad side, and generally in paid social, that some of them cross over. What would be your first point, Joey, of advice?
My first point of advice, I think there's many points of advice that we can go into. I think one of the main things that we've learned since we've been, running paid media activity as part of the agency, is that, we're going to be faced with so many different challenges based on the client that we're working with, the brand, the type of product. I think working with the different caliber of clients that we have done over the last few years, we've managed to gain so many different experiences, I guess, working with much smaller clients all the way up to, global multinational companies as well. There's lots of different ways that we approach it to see if we can get the best results out of the back end of it, I guess. But I think probably the first thing that we really kind of have learned, and it's kind of come from, I guess, the type of client that we've worked with initially, which is one that's started off smaller, but we've managed to scale quite a lot.
Yeah.
Is actually, the important things that are required to be able to scale that client and be able to grow the ad spend through an account, and obviously see the results out the back end of that too. Having a really well-defined product, really well-defined brand, but also a really good operational website is so important. From the ads that we're running, we need to make sure that we're sending them through to a place where it's easy for the user to browse. It's easy for the user to shop. We've worked with clients before where websites, aren't particularly up to scratch. The user journey through initial interaction with the site actually through to the purchase is quite difficult, which then makes our job much harder in terms of trying to scale that activity because we don't have that kind of basis in place, really.
Yeah. And in terms of what clients that generally see the most success, or what are they willing to work with us on, in terms of attribution and how that's modeled and how that they view it internally in terms of ROAS and the ability to scale. Where have you seen those that have scaled further and given you that freedom to do so versus maybe other previous clients that we've had which have been challenging to scale? What's the difference between those outside of their website product?
Yeah, I guess there's two ends of the spectrum, really, isn't there? There's kind of a really regimented approach that we have, with some clients where, budgets are a lot more set, and we have to work towards, I guess, more stringent targets, to appease kind of their internal targets, essentially. But then on the other end of the spectrum as well, we have some clients that we work with, which generally tend to be the ones that, do scale better, are the ones that give us more flexibility around kind of what we're doing with the budget and kind of where that's going. I think typically, and we've mentioned this kind of a few times on the podcast before, is really looking at the blended ROAS modeling and having a real holistic view is really important on that side of things. But not having a set budget to go alongside that, almost having a performance-led budget where if you're hitting the target, keep spending.
Yeah.
Because that way you're not restraining yourself in any way by any particular set budgets, and you can capture the market that's available at any one time.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've got set budgets, it's much harder to do so because there will only be a proportion of that market that you can capture rather than trying to gain all of it or as much as you can, really.
And over what period of time, assuming that we've hit that target, like how long would you want to see that performance stabilize at that level to then go and scale? Would obviously you probably don't want to look on it on a daily basis, but is it over 3 days, 7 days, longer than that? How does that look?
I guess it depends on, again, the type of products that you're selling. I think naturally we've seen some great successes with fashion-based clients where the fluctuations that we see seasonally, particularly like spring, summer launch, autumn, winter launch, we do see a spike in the amount of traffic and the number of sales coming off the back of that. But I think particularly using Q4 as a really good opportunity to really hit hard. I think, again, we've had some clients where we've really kind of loosened the constraints over Q4, and actually the levels that we've hit in terms of a revenue generation over that Q4 period, we've then managed to maintain into the next year because we've kept that level of spend going, and it's been really effective without having to go through Q4 and then scaling all the way back again.
Yes.
You really need to keep momentum going, which is really, really important from the scaling side of things.
And for those sort of bigger global clients that we have, and for any advice that you'd be giving any client like that, of that sort of size, naturally, I think obviously you see a point in time where, conversion-based activity with purchase and objective, there comes a degree of like diminishing returns and you start getting capped out. Past that point, what would be like next piece of advice? How would someone look to scale past that point based on campaign objective and pixel optimization?
Yeah, I think I guess number one thing to do after that is diversification of channels. I think once you've maximized one channel in terms of a conversion-based objective, moving on to the next channel is probably the best thing to do next. I think naturally most advertisers are on at least Google and Meta. One avenue that we go down is Pinterest and another TikTok. Now, granted, both of those are generally a little bit more brand awareness based platforms, but there's still a level of conversion intent that you can capture for users on those channels. So I think it's really important to diversify across those channels, particularly because there will be users on there that are unique, that aren't necessarily searching on Google, that aren't necessarily, on Meta. I think naturally we've seen Gen Z and the rise of TikTok being the search engine that they're using instead of using Google. So I think just making sure that we're capturing as much of that audience as possible. I think once you've then kind of, reached all of that potential, low hanging fruit, that's when you can start really branching out into the brand awareness based objectives, and really trying to get a larger amount of reach with your ad spend to then drive people down the funnels that you've created from the conversion side of things.
Campaign objectives are you doing there, would you say?
So there's, again, it depends what you're trying to achieve. And again, realistically, I think typically the main ones that you can really go after, in terms of getting the most for your money from, I guess, like an awareness objective, is the awareness objective across Meta, Pinterest, TikTok, because you're getting really, really cheap CPMs at that state, and you're getting eyeballs on content. You can look at video views, campaigns. If you want to move us, I guess, slightly further down the funnel, we do have, you've got traffic-based campaigns, engagement-based campaigns. But again, I think those are a bit more situational. I think if you're really going out for, a big brand-led messaging campaign, for example, I think those, awareness-based campaigns are probably the best approach to go for.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. And especially on the e-commerce side, if we talk specifically about that for a moment, product catalog is where we see a lot of success and have seen a lot of success recently. How can brands sort of elevate their activity with catalog? How can they elevate their existing product catalog to perform better? Because I know obviously that does drive a lot of conversions based, for us, and sort of that higher return on ad spend. But yeah, what would you say in terms of like optimizing that catalog activity?
So I think it's about catalog usage. Where are you using it within the conversion journey? I think everyone's go-to is let's do dynamic retargeting, which is, the easy go-to. You see a product online, it then follows you around until hopefully someone buys it. But, I think recently, over the last kind of 18 months, kind of 2 years, we've been really, delving into Facebook's dynamic ads for broad audiences, which is utilizing your product feed as a prospecting tool, and is really looking at high intent conversion based audiences. And again, Meta are categorizing people based on their browser behavior, what they've been looking at, to be able to serve products that are relevant for them at when they're ready to purchase, essentially. So that's been a really, really big tool for us scaling those brands. But I think it's also really important to make sure that you're utilizing your product feed in a way that's going to be engaging. I think, and again, we've discussed this on podcasts before, but you need a level of cut through with product feed. Quite a lot of product feeds are product on white background. It gets a bit boring when you're scrolling through and all you see is lots of different brands running product, white background images. So using catalog overlays is going to be really important in that scenario. Just adding that extra level of cut through. And the benefit of that as well is you can start overlaying USPs. You can start, overlaying if you've got access to any third-party tools as well. You can start adding kind of dynamic overlays as well to really add that extra layer to your product feeds. I think adding on to that as well, the use of storefront-based catalog ads as well is really good, and we've seen great success from that. So again, if those of you listening who don't understand what those are, essentially they are a collection based ad, and you have either an image or a video that sits at the top basically, and you have your product feed that runs underneath. And again, you can segment your product feed based on potentially what you're serving in that image. So you can almost make it like a lookbook, or it can be a product category that you can run with there. And again, we've seen really, really good success off the off the end of that.
Yeah, on those like broad audiences, catalog campaigns, like top of funnel, do you typically advise keeping it initially anyway, like all products within that feed, or do you ever categorize that down by maybe best sellers for men's products, or best sellers for women's, or fleeces, or whatever that may look like? Do you ever bring that down another stage, or do you recommend to get enough volume through those campaigns?
So I think
all products,
again, it depends where we're using it within the user journey and which campaign type we're using it for as well. I think dynamic ads for broad audiences, from the testing that we've done, we've always found that just keeping that as broad as possible in terms of what you've got in your catalog, letting it run, obviously excluding any kind of bits and bobs on there like gift cards and all that kind of thing that you don't want on your product feed. But that's kind of the best way that we've seen being able to drive performance from that side of things. I think the moment you then start using that product feed potentially, just in a regular conversions based campaign, whether that's at top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, that's when we can really start segmenting that product feed. I think certainly when you hit middle of the funnel, when someone's engaged with the website a little bit, they've been on the product category pages, we can then start segmenting that product feed based on what category pages people have been visiting. Because at the end of the day, they might not have clicked on a product yet, which would then put them in the dynamic remarketing pool. And we still want to be able to capture that user. So that's a really good way to do so.
If they've looked at trousers, for example, we might want to deliver the top performing trousers within that particular category. And I guess moving on from catalogs, but very closely aligned, is that creative piece. I know we talk about this a lot, bang on about it all the time, that naturally it is a super important part of any sort of paid social campaign. What major things have we learned there, especially over like the last 6-12 months, would you say, in terms of structure, creative type, how you sort of plan and think about those creatives? Obviously it depends client to client and brand to brand, but any sort of key tips?
Yeah, it's always something we hammer home, and I swear you guys never hear, stop hearing us talking about it. But I think, a user journey is a journey at the end of the day, and you don't want to get hit with the same piece of creative throughout that journey. It's just not particularly engaging, and fatigue can set in, relatively quickly if you've got the same piece of creative running at every kind of stage, or each of those different touch points. So I think some of the stuff that, we've always built together in terms of the account structure that we use, at top of the funnel, which is where we do all of our prospecting activity. Quite a lot of the time, video content, lifestyle content works really, really well at this stage at trying to initially capture that user, in terms of, really trying to sell in the brand. And then as soon as you kind of move down into that middle of the funnel, you kind of have that consideration phase, is when being a bit more product focused and being more social proof led becomes more important. there's extra elements that are, based on research that we've done, that users take into account what kind of people are in that consideration phase. So, that social proofing piece is really important. Looking at reviews, testimonials, influencer-based content, UGC is really, really important to kind of get that user back onto the site and getting them further down the funnel.
Yeah. And I guess from all the learnings that we've had as well, moving forward, how should people be expecting the sort of landscape to be changing? And is there any sort of key things that have happened over the last few months?
I mean, everyone's going to hate me for saying this, but automation again, it's taking over. Like Advantage Plus shopping campaigns have come out recently, and again, they're kind of blowing all of our old campaign structures out of the water. To be fair, they're performing very, very well, and the level of flexibility that you have with the campaign type is actually quite high, even though they are an automated campaign type in terms of the audience targeting that you have on there. So I guess from like a creative standpoint, I think what we've noticed, again, separating your product feed and your regular creative into two separate Advantage Plus campaigns, because the product feed will just cannibalize all the rest of the activity, because Meta will just prioritize spend there. But I think, you can have up to 8 Advantage Plus campaigns per territory. So there's a lot of testing that you can do in terms of splitting those out and segmenting them, and also running different types of creative based on the audience that you're targeting. Now you're probably thinking, well, it's all automated targeting. How are you going to change the audience? Well, you can overlay your current audience pool that you've got. So take an internal CRM list, upload it into the campaign type, and then there's a tick box that you can tick on there with a proportion of budget that you want to spend on your, on your current customers versus the current, the budget that you want to spend on acquiring new customers. And you can flex that essentially. So if you want to spend 100% of your budget on your current customers to get them to re-engage, you can do that. You can create, assets that specifically designed to try and get those users to come back and purchase. So there's lots of different ways that we can start leveraging that campaign objective and campaign type alongside, our typical kind of top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, to try and get those users onto site and purchase. But initially it's looking very good at the moment.
How have you seen it work if you're running Advantage Plus alongside your traditional top, middle, bottom? Are you recommending that you could just only run Advantage Plus, or would you still be incorporating other sort of funnel stages?
We are in a position, I think at the moment, we've done, reasonable amount of testing. There's still a lot more testing to do. But initially when we launched the campaigns, we are running them alongside our top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel campaigns. Yes, there is a little bit of cannibalization there, but I think you run them alongside each other, you're definitely capturing revenue streams that you haven't quite had access to before as well. So you're definitely reaching new users on that side of things. But for one of the clients that we work with, we're actually transitioning away from our top of the middle of the funnel campaign structure and replacing it with Advantage Plus, which is kind of a big change up. And we're going to see how that runs with just Advantage Plus running without that top and middle of the funnel side of things as a bit of a test over the next few months. So hopefully we'll be in a position to give you listeners, the listeners a bit more of an understanding of how that's performing. But it's an exciting time from that side of things.
When you're running Advantage Plus alongside traditional top, middle, bottom, how much budget, proportion of budget, total budget on a daily basis are you putting into that Advantage Plus versus everything else?
50-50, pretty much. I'm launching things with at the moment. It's all performance based. We're always going to look at it from what's doing well, but the client that we've then moved over to full Advantage Plus campaign targeting has been a gradual process. So we've been slowly weaning budget off top, middle of the funnel, and then pushing it into Advantage Plus. And we're now at the place now where Advantage Plus is the way forward. But again, it's exciting times with the new campaign side.
My final question.
Yeah.
What's the split when you're changing it between targeting current customers versus acquisition of new customers? Have we done much testing within those ranges and seen different performance, or it capping out different frequencies because it's retargeting too heavily? Where are you sort of positioning that at the moment? Is it very heavily?
So we're still quite early in the testing phase of this. I think the kind of two benchmarks that we've set so far is a 90-10 split and an 80-20 split. We found the 90-10 split seems to be kind of the better of the two so far, but we haven't quite done enough testing yet to be able to say, actually maybe like 100% current, existing customer base, let's go after them with some bespoke types of creative to target for them. That's kind of our main testing avenue to go down next. But the availability is to do it there, and we are very excited to see how that performs. Yeah.
We're going to have to do another podcast specifically on Advantage Plus in 3 to 6 months' times of all our learnings of that as well. But yeah, thank you very much for everyone for watching today. We're going to be producing a lot more podcasts on paid socials to do. So do make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, light it on fire, hit it as hard as you possibly can across LinkedIn, YouTube, wherever you're watching. And we'll be, hopefully be seeing you soon.